Hello, this is a distributor out of a 1.6 liter Ford CVH. Could use it on a 1.9 or 1.4, 1.3, 1.8, 2.0, whatever. Pretty much any CVH, as long as your electrical and vacuum can mate to this without any issue if you have vacuum and or electrical. But anyhow, here's what's up. So I had an issue recently with the diaphragm failing. So this is the vacuum diaphragm, and one of my cars, it had a leak in it somewhere. So because when you have a vacuum leak, you have high idle, you have lean mixture, and other things. So I had that going against me. And I found out that it was the diaphragm because I had pinched the hose that goes to it and my leak had stopped. My idle went down. So I knew that this guy was the culprit. I won't take it off for you, but I'll show you how it works. So one thing you should do right away, no matter whether yours is good or bad, or you just got your car, whatever, should try to tighten this little bolt here. I think it's a 6.5 millimeter. Maybe it's 5.5. I think they vary in size, but it's awfully small, just so you know. My fingers aren't huge by any means. That's tiny. That's smaller than 1/4 inch, and it's smaller than that 1/4 inch nipple. So if that means anything to you, it's pretty small. Tighten that up. It'll keep the vacuum diaphragm housing from spinning or moving up and down. Because if it's moving up and down, it's changing your timing. Because whenever this moves, your timing base down here rotates, thus affecting your timing greatly. Also, if it's got any side to side slop, or if it turns some, it's going to wear down the little pin there, and the shaft that goes to the plunger for the diaphragm, and it'll also wear out that little eyelet that's attached to what I'm going to call the timing base. That has the pickup coils for the spark, or trigger coils, whatever you want to call them. But again, if any part of that slops out, then it greatly affects your timing, which will not only hurt your performance, but it will cause damage to your motor depending on how severe it is. Another telltale sign that this is bad is you have this all hooked up properly, and you set the timing for this at idle, by turning the entire distributor housing assembly. You set it at idle, you go out for a drive, you put your foot down a little bit, and now you're pinging. It's probably this. Unless you got other serious issues, it's probably this vacuum housing. And the best way to test it, so like I said, is if you have a vacuum line hooked up to this, pinch it. If your idle goes down, then this is definitely a fault. That's an immediate telltale. But if you have it off a vehicle and you want to test it before wasting the time putting it on a car or whatever, you can take the cap off the distributor and take the little rotor cap off, and then it looks like this, obviously. But you can move this timer base, or remember, I call it timer base, that's probably not the correct term, but you can move it with your two hands, and if you put your ear up to this, or your face, you should feel puffs of air as you move that base around. Should both feel and hear it. It'll be very distinct. It'll be a very nice if it's working right. If it's not, like mine doesn't work at all. because it's got a nasty leak in it. You can't hear anything coming out of it at all whatsoever. You can't even feel anything into it. And if I put a hand pump pressure gauge on it, whatever air I put in it immediately leaks back out the other end. So there's that. But that's pretty much all I wanted to cover, is just how the vacuum thing works. Speaking of how it works, I totally forgot to mention how it works. What happens is that this gets vacuum from, I believe it gets vacuum from the intake manifold. So from the intake manifold, it's always making a little bit of vacuum to keep this sucked up, to have your timing, I believe, advanced. Yes, so whenever there's vacuum, that's advanced. And you have the most vacuum when your throttle is the most closed. So when you're at idle, you're making the most amount of advance here, and that's why you have to set your timing at idle by moving this guy around. Once you get up and over idle, you start losing your vacuum. Your timing retards some here down at the plate, but up here you have these centrifugal weights that fly out at specific RPMs. So you got those two going against each other. Now, where the vacuum part becomes particularly important is when you're under heavy load. Because if you're, let's say you're in fourth gear, you're trying to pass somebody, or if you're trying to climb a gentle hill, and you put your foot into the gas a little bit, not all the way to the floor, but you give it a little bit. But even if you have your foot to the floor, it'll do this. So these are extended, because no matter what, you're always at that RPM. These are extended, which I think it further advances. Yes. So when these are extended, it further advances your timing. And then, because you put your foot into it, you lose your vacuum, so your timing retards here, so then you're not pinging. And between the two, it's a real gentle balance, a perfect balance to get you not only performance but reliability upon daily driving. So having the two work perfectly is very, very important. If one's not working, or if neither is working, you'll have either massive pinging, or you'll have crazy amounts of retarded spark, and you won't run great, to say the least. So make sure all your weights are clean. Make sure they move in and out freely. You could hook up a drill to this. You take this sleeve or sheave, whatever you want to call it, you can take that off, hook up a drill chuck to the end of that, and spin it around at, so it's spinning in this direction. You can spin it around at 900 RPMs if you have a way of looking at that. And then those should be shut because you're at idle. And then timer base should be where it's sitting, because you don't have a way of moving the vacuum around. And then if you can get that drill up to, I think 2,000 to 3,000 is where these guys open up, and they should spread out. They won't fling out at you, but they'll spread open like that. Yeah, just make sure all that's clean and working right. Again, make sure this isn't loose. It only takes a couple seconds to tighten that. Make sure you don't strip it or round the head off. Neither will lead for pleasant repairs in the future. Also, make sure if you have an electric connector here that all of the contacts for it are clean and you have dielectric grease in it. Some have I believe it's TFI chip that's inserted in this square instead of this connector I have. I don't think any of my cars have it, but it's thermally triggered. So if if that chip reaches, I think, like 195 degrees, something like that, I have no idea because I don't own one, but it'll reach a certain temperature and then it'll shut off and you won't be able to run it until it cools down. They fail all the time, leave people stranded, so it's a good idea to carry a second one in your glove box. They're cheap enough, they're only $3 to $5. But again, if you have this, no need to worry about it. If you have a different electrical connector, don't worry about it. Some don't have this vacuum diaphragm. Instead, they have like an electrical connector, and they have various different things inside there. I wouldn't know too much about it because I haven't peeled one apart to play with it yet. But that's all I wanted to cover with this. Also, when it's out, make sure that the O-ring's in good shape. You can see mine has a little bit of a tear there. It's no bueno. You're going to leak oil right out of that. Dump it right onto the transmission and all sorts of stuff. So, we'll leave that video there. We've gone on far enough, so check this. No matter how young or old your EXP is, it's real easy to check for, even if you just look for the symptoms I mentioned at the beginning. High idle, lean mixture. Pinch the hose on this sucker. If it goes away, gotta take care of this. But otherwise, should be in good hands. So, good luck, and we'll see you next time.